Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a system administrator or a tech support pro tasked with managing your organization's migration from IPv4 to IPv6, you are exactly where you need to be. Today, we're diving into part 7 of a really fantastic 8-part tutorial series called IPv6 Troubleshooting for System Administrators and Technical Support. This was created by Virtualization Options LLC, which is a great Colorado-based tech research and education group. Now, to truly fix modern dual-stack networks, we have to fundamentally shift our mindset. It's time to actively unlearn all that old muscle memory we've built up over years of working with IPv4.
Here's a quick look at what we're covering today. First, unlearning IPv4. Second, those sneaky dual-stack failures. Third, replacing ARP. Fourth, the PMTUD trap. Fifth, VPNs and rogue RAs. And finally, we'll wrap up with the golden rules of IPv6 troubleshooting. Let's jump in.
All right, Section 1, unlearning IPv4 muscle memory and resetting our baseline.
So right off the bat, IPv6 is not just a bigger address space bolted onto IPv4. It is a fundamentally different protocol, and the contrast is pretty stark. In IPv4, you usually expect a single address, like 192.168.1.10, and you rely heavily on NAT. But in IPv6, broadcast tools like pinging 255.255.255.255 are totally dead. Multicast replaces broadcast entirely, and NAT is largely absent, which means your firewall design has to change from the ground up.
Take a look at this interface configuration. It is completely normal for a single IPv6 interface to have multiple addresses active at the exact same time. Notice how a link local address starting with FE80 is just happily coexisting alongside a global unicast address and temporary privacy addresses. So whatever you do, don't troubleshoot this as an error. It's supposed to look like that.
Moving on to Section 2, dual-stack silent failures and when broken paths hide. Because most production networks today are running both IPv4 and IPv6, broken paths love to hide behind a mechanism known as happy eyeballs, or RFC 8305. Basically, modern browsers prefer IPv6 and will try it first, but they race it against IPv4 after a 250 millisecond delay. Because of this, a broken IPv6 path won't actually throw an outright error. Instead, every single connection silently suffers a 250 millisecond latency penalty. As a sysadmin, you don't get a blaring alarm, the network just mysteriously feels sluggish.
Another really common silent failure happens during duplicate address detection, or DAD. When a host joins a network, it initiates DAD. If another host responds, maybe because of a cloned VM MAC address or some rogue device on the segment, a conflict is detected. The interface then gets stuck in a tentative or DAD-failed state with absolutely no global connectivity. And again, there are no loud alarms here, just broken connectivity that you have to hunt down.
Section 3, replacing ARP with the new Neighbor Discovery Protocol.
With ARP officially gone, you need to be aware of the new dependencies NDP brings to the table. It uses multicast extensively. That means your switches absolutely require MLD snooping. Without it, the switch is just going to flood NDP traffic to all ports and completely tank your network performance. On top of that, your default gateway now relies entirely on router advertisements, or RAs. If those RAs drop or a router sends one with a lifetime of 0, your host will silently lose their default route. There's no explicit DHCP gateway renewal here.
All right, Section 4, the PMTUD and ICMP v6 trap. Honestly, this is probably the most critical hurdle you'll face.
I am almost certain you've seen this incredibly frustrating symptom before. A basic tiny ping works perfectly fine, but the exact moment you try a large file transfer, HTTPS, or an SSH session, it just completely stalls out right after the TCP handshake. Why on earth does this happen?
Well, this happens because of a path MTU discovery, or PMTUD, failure. What's happening is that large packets are hitting a router with a smaller MTU limit, but a firewall is blocking that router from sending the necessary ICMPv6 packet too big message back to the source. It literally creates a black hole on your network. You can confirm this yourself. Test a small ping, which will succeed, and compare it to a 1400 byte ping, which will fail. And remember, the absolute minimum MTU for IPv6 is 1280 bytes. Never ever configure it lower than that.
So the crucial takeaway here is this firewall checklist. You simply cannot just block all ICMP in an IPv6 world like we used to do in v4. You absolutely must permit Type 1 for error signaling, Type 2 for PMTUD, Type 3 for traceroute and TTL expiry, and Types 133 through 137 so NDP can actually function. If your firewalls are blocking these, your network is just not going to work. Period.
Let's look at Section 5, VPNs and rogue RNAs. These are your modern infrastructure headaches.
VPNs are notorious for breaking IPv6. For example, tunnels using Protocol 41 add a 20-byte IPv4 header, which instantly reduces your effective MTU. You also have to watch out for split tunnel leaks or split DNS synthesis failures where the server returns totally incorrect AAA records. To fix this, you generally have two strict choices as an admin. Either explicitly tunnel the IPv6 route by pushing a 0/0 route, or just completely disable IPv6 on the client side.
Then we have the nightmare of rogue router advertisements. Docker bridge networks, for instance, can accidentally send out rogue RAs that completely hijack segments. You've got to either disable IPv6 on the Docker daemon or stop them at the switch level using RAguard. Also, keep in mind that mobile devices, like iOS, rotate their addresses aggressively to prevent tracking. It's a really cool mechanic, but it definitely complicates troubleshooting. Here's a quick tip. If an iOS device only shows a link local fee80 address with no global unicast address, you know immediately it completely missed the router advertisement.
Finally, Section 6 are IPv6 golden rules and best practices.
Look, if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer today, please remember this one cardinal rule. Never block ICMPv6 entirely. Doing so is a massive, self-inflicted wound. Blocking it outright breaks neighbor discovery, it breaks PMTUD, and it breaks multicast membership. It is fundamentally essential to IPv6 operation.
Let's quickly summarize our golden rules. Number 1, always test your network stacks independently using explicit commands, like running curl on 6 versus curl 4. Number 2, keep reminding yourself that multiple addresses on a single interface are completely normal. Number 3, protect your firewalls by dropping atomic fragments, because they are a known security risk. And number 4, meticulously document your delegated prefixes from your ISP. If you don't, sudden prefix changes are going to silently break your static configurations.
So, I want to leave you with this question to chew on. Are you still relying on your old IPv4 assumptions to fix today's modern networks? The shift to IPv6 requires a deliberate, updated mindset. But armed with the troubleshooting strategies from this chapter, you are now ready to tackle those silent failures head-on. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer of Virtualization Options tutorial. Keep learning, keep troubleshooting, and I'll catch you next time.